The following program contains images that may be disturbing to some viewers. This is a special edition of 2020, reported by Elizabeth Vargas.
We thank you in the good times and the bad times. And we thank you for the time that you have allowed this baby to be a part of our lives, for she's touched our lives in a special way. God, you called her home the other day because you are an all-knowing God, you're an all-wise God, and you know what is best for her.
Open your eyes, don't let go of my hand. Let your tears give way to smile. See the joy inside the trial, don't worry.
There are places in America where the unthinkable is happening. Too many babies are dying. In fact, among the world's 23 richest countries, the U.S. has the highest rate of infant mortality. Babies who die before their first birthday. Black babies die at 3 times the rate of whites. We've come to Memphis, Tennessee, because babies die here at a rate higher than that of any other major city. The babies most at risk come from those parts of town that are poor and black. A baby dies in Memphis every 43 hours. Many people here are trying to change those startling numbers. Their efforts to save the babies tell the story.
This is the tiniest baby here?
392 grams, born at 23 weeks.
Yeah. So what are the chances he'll live?
I would say around 20%.
20%?
Right. We could go either way, and it's a tough one.
When you go after infant mortality, you're not going after polio like the March of Dimes did. You're going after life. There's something wrong with the system. When a man at this end of town has 3 times the chance of losing his baby than at my end of town.
Do you think this population's been written off?
Yes. And that they're there because they've made poor choices and they were
It's their fault.
And it's their fault. And they were to pay for those poor choices. But where they bury these tiny boxes, you know, of babies that have died. Now that, you have to almost not have a heart for that not to touch you.
I think it's everybody in Memphis's responsibility. You know, maybe their skin's a different color, but they're just like you and I.
This old Mississippi river town is now part of the New South. More than 1 million people live here in the city and in the suburbs. As in many other places, many families in Memphis who can afford to have left the older city behind. They've created their own parks and hospitals and schools, and of course, churches. One of them is Hope Presbyterian.
There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up.
Reverend Eli Morris is the urban minister. Twice a year, he leads volunteers from his suburban congregation to a mission downtown. From here, for 3 days, they tour what can seem like a foreign country.
All right, people.
When we abandon the city, I really believe that we compromise our community's future. And Memphis continues to be the second most segregated city in the country.
5 years ago, Hope Presbyterian bought a house and established a permanent mission in one of the poorest zip codes in Memphis. They named it the Oasis of Hope and hired a full-time manager, Karen Durham.
Orange leader, and she's going to meet right over here by this tree. So
we are really in a critical state on infant mortality. We have children having children, and they need to know that somebody's there to walk beside them. And we never know what some of these children have been through themselves. And you really just have no idea where they've been.
I had talked to Karen Durham, and she said, hey, we've got a young lady that we've been working with for a long time, and she's pregnant, and I would love for you to work with her.
And so it happened that Terry Drumright, who's married with 2 grown daughters and who lives here with her husband in a Memphis suburb, became a mentor to a young woman who lives here with her grandmother, mother, and younger brother. Andrea Precious Simpson, a high school graduate at the age of 17, became pregnant by a 19-year-old who lived in the neighborhood.
I'm not ready for no child. Not stable enough to have a child. I'm still a child.
Get set, go!
Precious Simpson considered having an abortion, but her new mentor, Terry, helped her decide to have the baby. Because she's young and poor, Precious is in that group most at risk of giving birth too soon, and premature birth is the primary medical cause of infant mortality. Terry Drumright's first mission was to get Precious to a clinic to begin regular prenatal care.
We send missionaries all over the world to help people in dire situations, and this is something right here in my hometown. It's just on the other side of Memphis, and it's something I can do.
Whenever I call her, she'll come by to help me. Yep, she's great.
Simpson?
We wanted to do everything we possibly could for Precious to be able to deliver a healthy baby, and a large part of that was seeing the doctor each month and having the checkups. And Precious is very brave, because I was a strange white lady calling her and saying, I don't know you, but let's get together. You know, let's go out and let's talk. If it's the real thing. You know, coming up with topics of conversation at first was a little bit awkward, but at the same time, she's a girl just like my daughters. And we talk about things. We've talked about boys, we've talked about friends, and that's the same regardless of what color somebody is.
Come on, sit up here by me, sweetie. How are you?
I'm just
doing
great. How are you
good.
doing?
I'm good. Okay. Remember that test that we did last time?
Precious was found to have Group B strep, a common infection that's usually harmless in adults but can be life-threatening for newborns. Precious already knew something about the risks to her baby. Her sister-in-law lost a baby when the fetus got an infection in the womb.
And her baby had died.
Did she go to the doctor early on?
Nah, she wasn't going to the doctor like she was supposed to. She be coming.
Precious and her unborn daughter were treated with antibiotics to head off any problems. Regular trips to the clinic had eliminated at least one threat to having a healthy baby.
And we'll see you next week. Okay. Okay.
Precious is not alone. So far this year, unwed mothers in Memphis had given birth to 5,188 babies, most of them delivered at the big public hospital, where classes are held for women and girls who have the interest and the means to come here before they're in labor.
You need to bond with your baby. Your baby know your presence. And a lot of times that's real important, because just a touch from you could even cause your baby to improve, because mama is there and she's got her hands on me. So ain't nothing like that mother's love.
The rate of infant mortality in Memphis would be even higher if it weren't for the work of this hospital, called simply the Med. They save more than 1,000 babies a year who are born too early, many of them 2, 3, even 4 months premature.
I was 6 months. I would have been 27 weeks yesterday. Ain't doing fine, doing real good.
Every day I came in here, she was fighting. And like I say, a 1 pounder can do it. I'm pretty much sure a 191 pound woman can do it. So she taught me a lot. Without this place, you know, where, you know, people go.
Up till yesterday, she had been on CPAP.
The Meds Neonatal Intensive Care Unit is led by Dr. Ramas Subbareddy Danareddy.
This baby weighed 932 grams at birth, born at 28 weeks.
28 weeks.
Yeah, 12 weeks
12
early.
weeks early.
Many of the mothers who give birth to the babies here have given birth prematurely before.
This is her 5th baby?
This is her fifth pregnancy. Right, and she had 3 babies.
Do you know what happened to the other 2? Did they not go to term, or?
Not term, but they didn't make it.
This baby was born to a 12-year-old girl who revealed she was pregnant just weeks before going into labor.
Like I said, she had limited prenatal care. She went to the doctor about a month before she actually gave birth.
The mother actually said she didn't know she was pregnant, or?
She did.
She
You
did.
know, you're talking to a 12-year-old girl now.
A 12-year-old girl.
And her story
Right, so,
changes,
right, so,
you know, the more you talk to her. But she acts very much like a 12-year-old.
Wow. How much did it cost to save this baby?
This one is not going to cost that much. Maybe, you know, $30,000.
$30,000?
Yeah, $25,000, $30,000. Average cost of a premature baby is $55,000. But most of the money is going in those tiny babies. Some of them maybe $500,000.
And how much would it have cost to perhaps maybe lessen the chance that that baby was born prematurely by getting prenatal care to that mother?
Oh, it's much, much cheaper, obviously. Prevention is a lot better than having to treat a preterm baby.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Tell me how it's going.
Dr. Sheldon Coronas is the founder of the neonatal unit. Dr. Coronas had a successful practice in 1968 when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered in Memphis. The young pediatrician wanted to do something. He began campaigning for a state-of-the-art newborn center at the public hospital in the heart of Memphis's inner city to help babies born poor and black.
There it was, angry doctor. It's true, I was angry. I'm still angry. The situation hadn't changed much at all. Wherever there is a high concentration of Afro-Americans, Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, New Orleans, you name it, there is a higher infant mortality rate. So, is it a racial issue? It seems to be preponderant among black babies, this proclivity to death.
The first health department report warning that Memphis has a problem with infant mortality was issued in 1935. Today, every Tuesday and Thursday, as the bodies accumulate, the health department takes over for the families who can't afford a funeral.
The county off this service, and most people gonna take it because they do not have money to go to a private cemetery. We do as better job as we can because we getting those bodies back to God.
The county cemetery used to be called Potter's Field. Now, some people in the poor parts of town call it Babyland.
This is a great cemetery, and I have seen it over the years just explode with burying people.
I just pray that my baby lives, you know. It's so risky. I don't care about curly hair or blue eyes, green eyes, as long as she's healthy. That's all my main concern, is a healthy baby. Because you see so much nowadays. Yeah. So much.
Hey, Steve. favor?
At the home her suburban church named the Oasis of Hope, Karen Durham tries to create what she calls a safe house, where young people can escape, if only for a while, some of the dangers that define their everyday lives.
Let's go.
Here, there's always running water, electricity, snacks, and something to do.
Y'all know there's milk in that cooler.
Thank you. God bless you.
Surrounding the Oasis of Hope are the neighborhoods left behind when the middle class moved out. This neighborhood contributes to Memphis's standing this year as the city with the second highest homicide rate after Detroit. Almost everyone here knows someone who was killed. Makeshift memorials mark the spots. Studies show that people living in places like this actually suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, like veterans of war. Mothers-to-be, like Precious, are told to avoid the physical and emotional strain that can damage an unborn child.
The inner city is like the most stressful place, I think. Crime rate is too high. You see too much things goes on in the neighborhood. Stress plays a major role in pregnancy too. If you're stressed out a lot, you can easily have a miscarriage. I know several people who have lost their child due to a miscarriage. My friend Tanya, she lost her child. Like a couple of weeks ago, she lost her child.
Precious's friend Tanya Conley lives with her grandmother and babysits her brother's children. Tanya was 17 when she got pregnant. She went into labor 4 months early.
When he came out, he was already dead. They like took pictures of my baby and stuff and let me hold my baby. I really wanted my baby. Words can't explain, I guess. That's something you live with forever. You have the loss of your unborn child. Hey, y'all can put that over that table then, back there then.
I wanted to give Precious a baby shower, not at the church. We had it at the community center because I know people say, well, she's not married. She shouldn't be having a baby. She shouldn't be pregnant. Well, shouldn't, but she is. So now what are we going to do?
What to put through that, Miss Terry?
Since this infant mortality issue has come so much into the limelight, a lot of the comments that have been being made, a lot of them are being made by churches around the city. It's, you wouldn't have this problem if the young women weren't pregnant, or you should be teaching abstinence. And yes, that's important, but still, we have the pregnancies, we have the babies, so we need to take care of them, and we need to talk to them, and we need to educate the young moms about taking care of their child, and also about birth control and about abstinence.
Do you think that because people judge the poor choices that poor mothers make, that they then assume that those mothers care less, love those babies less, love themselves less?
I think there are a lot of assumptions that we make about people that are poor. And unless you have spent time and interacted with people who are poor, you have no idea what their lives are like.
Wendy Thomas grew up in Memphis. In her column in the local paper, she often asks why poor people don't get more attention from elected officials.
People who are poor, in my experience, don't have that same feeling of entitlement to quality housing, to buses that run near where they live, to a grocery store that even has produce that you'd want to eat. And all these things compound upon each other to create a cycle and a system of poverty that seems, it can seem inescapable.
Why not walk down and get, birth control for less than $10.
Right. Do you have $10 for birth control? Are the clinics located close enough to you? Do the buses travel to the clinics at times when you can get there? Poor people are just like the rest of us. They want love and affection and a family and to be cared for, and unfortunately they're not always in the best position to be able to do that. But the choices they're making aren't significantly different than the choices the rest of us are making. It's just that my insurance covers birth control. Do they have insurance? Do you know what I mean?
Caught me off guard. We didn't plan this pregnancy. And I have a friend up the street. She didn't plan on getting pregnant. She got pregnant at the age of 12. 13, had her baby.
13-year-old Jasmine came to the baby shower with her 1-year-old son, Jalen.
She's a young mother, you know, still got a lot of growing up to do. She don't know how to raise a child.
Many of these young mothers are raising babies alone. Nearly 65% of black children nationwide grow up without their father. Precious hasn't spoken to her father since the day she told him she was pregnant.
I try not to let it get to me so much. But it's not a day go by that I don't, think about where he's at and why would he walk out on me now. This is a big time where you need your father the most to help support you.
The young women are so hungry for attention. And if that's the way they can get it, then that's the way they can get it, because I do believe a lot of the relationships are very casual. First date, second date. It's not a little couple that's been going together necessarily a long time, having a long-term relationship. It could be something that they just meet up and have sex. And I think that goes back to not being any men in a lot of the children's lives.
That scratch was a baby moving, and he just kicked at me again.
Since the age of 8, I always wanted to be a doctor and come back home and practice medicine where I grew up.
Dr. Linda Moses grew up in one of the 3 Memphis zip codes where babies die at the same rate as in some third world countries. Dr. Moses divides her time between the public hospital, the Med, and this health department clinic in her old neighborhood.
Make sure you're all the way down on the symphysis.
Every week that the fetus stays in the womb makes a huge difference in the health of a baby. Doctors say if every premature birth could be delayed even 1 week, the infant mortality rate would go down dramatically.
There you go. Graduate from high school? Would you like to get that GED done?
After I have my baby.
Huh?
After I have my baby.
Well, that's perfect time while you're sitting around. You could be reviewing.
How much of your job, I guess, is basic education?
All of my job is basic education. Every contact that I have with a patient, my goal is to impart some knowledge and give her permission to ask questions. I think one of the things with prematurity and infant mortality is the reason it's so rampant in communities where people are less fortunate is because the knowledge is not there. We need people in the community that could influence young people to do better with their lives.
Some health department clinics also have nurses who make house calls. Vivian Davis goes to patients who have a history of difficult pregnancies.
I want you to remember what those preterm labor symptoms were. I want you to remember what you need to do if you go into preterm labor, and go to the emergency room.
Yes, ma'am.
You know how the old folk used to do back a long time ago, and she likes that. And
Studies have confirmed that this kind of one-on-one contact with a visiting nurse is one of the most effective ways to influence the health of a low-income mother and her baby.
Helping that gas move around.
Yet, the home visitation program has steadily lost nurses as the Memphis and Shelby County Health Department has had to cut its budget.
We don't have as many nurses as we used to have. It has changed tremendously because we don't have enough people to go around to see everybody that we are scheduled to see. Some of the most serious ones may fall through the crack, you know, because we don't have enough people to see them.
For those who come to the neighborhood clinics, hours and services also have been reduced. This is the clinic where Dr. Moses works, never open in the evenings and open only half a day on Fridays to hold down costs. If you could wave a magic wand and change something, what would you change? What would you do?
I think money will make a big difference.
Why do you think people don't want to spend the money on,
Children don't vote. Babies can't vote.
But everybody
Poor
loves a
people
baby.
don't vote. Yes, they do. Everybody does love a baby.
So then why aren't more people more upset about the number of babies who die because they're born too early?
I think it hasn't hit close enough to home. And sometimes we just don't know. But ignorance is not always an acceptable excuse for not doing things.
We know any woman who is pregnant needs to go see a doctor on a regular basis. And
In 2006, Tennessee Governor Phil Bredesen gathered community groups and government agencies for an infant mortality summit meeting in Memphis. The governor brought his state health commissioner at the time, Dr. Kenneth Robinson, who was also pastor of a Memphis church.
Every baby deserves a first birthday.
As we looked back over the statistics, it was interesting to note that in one recent year, there were 202 babies died in 1 year. That was far more than the number of homicides in Memphis, 122 that same year.
Well, it's a very sad reality that infant deaths don't seem to get the priority often that some of the other high-profile, newsworthy 6 and 10 o'clock news stories do get. When you really think about it, that infant deaths in this nation account for more deaths than all of the other causes of death combined for children up to age 18. We should be marching. We should be absolutely indignant about those numbers. And more than that, we should be aggressively approaching at least doing the things that we think will make a difference to decrease those rates of infant death.
I want this day to be the day when the people of Memphis, the people of the state of Tennessee stood up together and said, we're not going to be silent, we're not going to stand aside as one more child dies in vain.
Officials at the meeting announced state grants to fund more studies and more pilot programs and a billboard advertising campaign.
I've been going to meetings about this with chest beating and programs and so on. But what we need to realize, and I think we finally do, you're looking at infant mortality as a manifestation of the accumulated social inadequacies that we have tolerated historically. And we happen to be tackling infant mortality. There's so much else in that picture, ranging all the way from the proper lifestyle and diet to the proper education and life itself. If you're on welfare and you don't know where your next meal's coming from, and you have to walk wherever it is because you can't buy the gas, or whatever those things are, your chances of having a healthy baby are diminished. In this community, when a premature baby is born, society has failed.
By the time she checked into the med and family members had gathered, Precious Simpson had carried her baby to full term. With the help of her mentor, Terry Drumright, Precious was one pregnant teenager who had done all the right things to take care of herself and her daughter.
We got a little girl. 7 pounds, 6 ounces.
It was a difficult delivery, but the baby was healthy.
She's real light.
Precious gave her the name the baby's father, Bryson, wanted, Brianna.
We done it!
The only time I met the baby's father was at the hospital the night that Brianna was born. That's the only time I really met Bryson. And he would talk so ugly to her. I mean, when she early on in her pregnancy, she would tell me some of the things that he'd say. I mean, it was pretty a rough relationship.
Really, I'm better off without him. I don't need him for nothing. He's the typical thug. You know, got a lot of girlfriends, all that. He don't care about nothing but his car, rims, money. But, you know, I ain't gonna hold no grudge against him. If he ever feel like he wanna straighten up and, you know, be there for the baby, he can, but, you know, there's nothing more between me and him. There can never be any more us. But if he ever feel like he wanna come see the baby, I'll let him see him.
I think she very much wants him to be a father. But she ain't gonna say that. Because that makes her weak. That makes her something that she doesn't want to be. That's just women. Women are very strong here. They are very strong. Or at least give the appearance of. But in a lot of cases, they're survivors. So they will raise that child with or without that man. But I don't think the thought process is any different as to everybody wants their child to have a mom and a dad and grandparents and all those things. I don't care who you are.
If Precious was hoping that she and her baby's father might become a family, that notion ended before Brianna was 2 months old. Bryson Lewis was shot dead in the street 3 blocks from the home of his new daughter.
I was dreaming, but it seemed so real. My phone rung, and this is true. My phone rung, and I answered it, and it said, "This is a collect call from." And you know, Bryson been in and out of jail, but you know, he just said, "Bryson." They woke me up, and I was like, "You just ask for forgiveness, ask God to give you the strength to run this race, and ask Him to save you." He was like, "Okay, cuz, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that." I said, "If you can do it right now if you want to." I said, "You can go into your car and you can do it then." He was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." Keep your head up. This too shall pass. Amen.
That's gonna be very hard, you know, telling her, I ain't gonna leave nothing out. I'm gonna tell her the good stuff about me and the bad stuff. I think everybody should know, you know, about their parents.
Precious began leaving Brianna with a girlfriend while she looked for work. All she could find was a part-time minimum wage job 5 miles from home. It required 2 buses to get there.
You know, her brother was shot and killed maybe 4 or 5 years back. She had another brother. And then she saw a young man get killed walking through the neighborhood there in the middle of the day. So she's seen a lot. It makes me appreciate the things that I have always taken for granted. Because I have lived in Memphis all of my life, born and raised, and yet it's kind of a mystery, the other side of town. I've had several friends over the time, even now, that still worry about what I'm doing. And I've had it from the angle of, you know, well, they just want to having another baby so they can get food stamps, or so they can get this help or that help, or, you know, they just need to get out and get a job. Well, jobs would be nice, but there's a lot of issues going on besides just the jobs. The transportation, the money for the bus. I mean, there's many facets that come into play on such as that, and I think that's what a lot of people don't know. They don't know how involved it is, what a puzzle it is. They don't know how stressful it is to be poor.
When Precious Simpson looked for work to support herself and her new daughter, she could find only a summer job at a city pool, paying minimum wage.
Hey, take your shirt off. Take your shirt off.
Studies show that teenagers with jobs are happier and less likely to allow themselves to become pregnant. But the number of teenagers in Memphis giving birth has increased this year at the same time that unemployment is rising. It's often said that the best social program is a good job, but when the city offered a summer work program, it got 6 times as many applications as jobs. So a lottery was held.
What we are trying to do is to prepare you for the real world of work. The real world of work.
Did you anticipate that 6,000 kids would apply for 1,000 jobs?
Yes.
Is the city doing all it can?
Every problem in America is not created by government, and it cannot and should not be solved by government. It just cannot be, because government is becoming more and more massive and more expensive, and people are railing against that.
White forms are for pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and women with children 3 months and under.
The Memphis and Shelby County Health Department faces more funding cuts this year, which could hurt programs that fight infant mortality. So at the annual Health Department baby shower, government agencies and community groups are trying to do together what neither can find the money for alone.
The more you nurse, the more milk your body makes. So if you go 3, 4...
This is a magnet you can put on your refrigerator and tells you why you need to put your baby to sleep on his back. We nudge the public officials. They're only going to do something if we make them do it, or inspire them to do that.
Realize it's important.
And make them know that it's important, and that we're doing something ourselves without them. So we need their support in everything that's done.
As government funding is cut, more and more programs are funded entirely by nonprofit organizations.
You want them to be able to have an opinion, not disrespectfully, not yelling and screaming.
Irma Simpson is one counselor who has found that raising private money to help mothers and babies at risk is not easy.
I sent out a APB across the city. Please help me, we need maternity clothes. I had one donation of maternity clothes. I had trouble getting Pampers. So imagine trying to get $60, $70, $100,000 grant.
Is it race? Is it because these babies are black that somehow people care less?
Yes, period.
I think the bottom line, more so than race, is finances. What am I going to get back if I put all this money into this inner city indigent program? Are they going to come out and vote for me? Are they going to do the things that's going to make me get to where I want to be? It's the human race, and basically it's a selfish race.
Now, if you prefer not to contribute to this in any way, and you want to go to the bank with your pockets full instead, okay. If your morals are disrupted, if you are offended by a way of life you cannot accept, and a way of life you have avoided, I respect you for what you have avoided. I wish you to help, but don't oppose. This boils down to an age-old question. Am I my brother's keeper? I think I am.
Despite the efforts of so many people of goodwill, work goes on as usual for these government workers. As the gap in income and health between rich and poor continues to grow, so does the number of babies buried across the country in places like Babyland.